super speed savior of all Homo sapiens. Today we're looking at the one and only original Golden Age Flash on Comicology. So, I know what you're thinking. This guy looks kind of strange. Well, that's because when somebody says the superhero DC Comics Flash, you probably think of this guy. Well, this guy is actually Barry Allen. He is actually the Silver Age Flash, and long before he ever even showed up in comic books, there was a man named Jay Garrick. Jay Garrick had super speed and the moniker of the Flash long before Barry Allen showed up. He fought crime all through the Golden Age as the Flash. So how did all this happen? Well, let me set the scene for you. The year is 1940, and America was still a few years away from entering World War II, but it had been introduced already to the superhero. Batman and Superman had already had their premiere issues, and both were big hits. Back then, DC Comics editor Vin Sullivan would task a young Gardner Fox to team up with an artist, Harry Lambert, and produce a brand new superhero to coincide with Batman and Superman in DC's brand new ever-growing pantheon of superheroes. Together, they decided to create a character based off of the god Mercury and his ability to move really fast. Together, they created the Flash. So the Flash is unique because he wasn't really a mishap, right? If he wasn't Superman, he wasn't just put in something to fill a book. They understood that he was going to be successful because they had already had success with Superman and Batman. And because those two books were successful, they decided to make Flash his own comic book. The very first issue premiering with Flash, it's called Flash Comics #1, and he gets top billing. He's literally drawn onto the cover. And they understood that they wanted this to be a success. This was a really gutsy move by DC because they didn't know if the character would be popular. They were following a fad. You understand? They were trying to capitalize on a trend. Apparently, though, they had faith in the character. They had faith in what Gardner Fox had written up because they put a lot into the book. And as we all know, that faith paid off because Flash became a huge hit with readers. Upon release, people adored the character, partly due to his upbeat attitude and partly because of his super speed gimmick. You have to understand, people hadn't ever really seen a speedster in comic books before. It was unique, it was fun, it was exciting. The Flash was an all-around great character. In fact, he was so popular that within a year after his release, he had worked his way into becoming a member of the Justice Society of America, and also he had worked his way into his own solo title, All Flash Comics, which is, of course, it coincided with his already solo title, just plain Flash Comics. So now you know. Now you know the story. The Flash was a big hit, so let's take a look at his first issue, Flash Comics #1, and explore the origin of Jay Garrick. The story starts and we are immediately introduced to Jay Garrick, who is a student at the prestigious Midwestern University. But he seems to be having trouble with the ladies. He attempts to ask out his sweetheart, a woman named Joan, but she decides to go with someone else because Jay just isn't a very serious man. That reminds me a lot of Clark Kent. I love that trope, the trope of women refusing to date someone because they're not as great as the hero, even though they're secretly the hero. It's delicious. It makes me laugh every time. Jay's day is about to get a whole lot worse, however, when he visits his professor's laboratory and accidentally knocks over some vials of hard water, which immediately turn into vapors, which he breathes in. Jay is unconscious, and they immediately rush him to the nearest hospital, where they discover that his body has gained the ability to move at super speeds. Okay, so before you say anything, I'm going to say it for you. Jay Garrick has a stupid origin. hard water vapors. He inhales them, and then it somehow gives him the power to move very fast. I don't quite understand how that works. It doesn't. It's kind of just easy to say that none of these comic book heroes really exist in reality, but this was an acceptable leap of the logic. I mean, for 1940. I mean, just the science wasn't as advanced back then. In fact, now that I think about it, much later on, DC Comics would realize how foolish that origin is, and they would write in some retcons that Jay Garrick was always innately a part of the Speed Force, and that the hard water vapors just sort of awakened his Speed Force connection, which kind of helps, I guess. It at least shows that they knew it was dumb. So next we see Jay Garrick at his big game. The university is getting creamed and the coach has nobody left to play. So Jay gets sent to the field where he immediately destroys the other team using his super speed. He wins the big game and then graduates from college all on the same page. You know, it's actually probably better paced than I'm giving it credit for. So now that he's out of college, Jay is going steady with Joan until one day when an assassin attempts to shoot her from a moving vehicle. The Flash, using his speed to catch the bullet, explains to Joan that her father is in some trouble with a local crime syndicate and that he's been kidnapped. Yeah, that all happened really fast. Like there's pacing in this issue, pacing problems. Just because it's the Flash, it doesn't need to move that fast. The local crime syndicate turns out to be a group of blackmailers known as the Faultless Four. Their plan is to use Joan as leverage to acquire her father's secret atomic bombarder weapon and sell it to foreign nations for a ridiculous price. Now, you gotta understand, I mean, just always be putting it in your head that this was made in 1940. It's completely ridiculous. but no, just compared to other Golden Age supervillains, these guys are great. They have like a gimmick. There's 4 of them. I mean, it's cool. But that doesn't stop Flash from completely just destroying them, as we're about to see. The plan completely backfires when the Flash gets involved. He shows up at their base and literally just grabs Joan, her father, and runs off. The Faultless Four are literally powerless to stop him. In retaliation, the Faultless Four mount an airplane attack on Coney Island Beach, but the Flash intervenes and literally catches all the bullets that they fire. Then he returns to their hideout, and a chase commences with a premier member of the Faultless Four, a man named Seer Satan, which ends with him flying off a turnpike and falling to his death with a smoldering wreck. This is a fitting end, I suppose, to his reign of terror. So that's kind of the Flash in a nutshell. So after this initial issue, the Flash would go on many more adventures and have a long and fruitful relationship with his girlfriend Joan. Flash Comics ran for 104 issues, all the way up to 1950, where, if you ask me, that's when the Silver Age started. That's a little bit debatable, but I think it's telling of the character. Jay Garrick is a Golden Age character, and he ran the full gamut from almost the premiere of superheroes into modern pop culture, all the way to the start of the Silver Age. Unfortunately, he was canceled at that point because at that point the superhero genre had started to wane. People started getting into other things and it just wasn't selling as well. The good news is, though, that a few years later, well into the Silver Age, I believe 1958, Barry Allen showed up, who is the Flash that we all know and love. But who could forget Jay Garrick? I mean, the man's a sweetheart. So that's everything I got for this episode of Comicology. Thank you all for watching. But if you would so indulge me and answer one of my silly questions, I'm genuinely curious. Which Flash do you prefer? Do you prefer Barry Allen, the silver-aged, more science-based Flash? Or do you prefer Jay Garrick, who is more mythology, more based off of the god Mercury? If you had to pick one and kill the other, who would it be? Also, just so you know, Jay Garrick in the comic books has been known to be a great character friend of Alan Scott. For those who don't know, Alan Scott is the Golden Age version of Green Lantern. If you want, I also have a video about Mr. Alan Scott available on my channel. You can go watch that if you want the full story. Okay, that's it. I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Bye.